Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when you have to pause, not because you're weak, but because God is about to speak. And when He speaks, mountains move, valleys shift, and destinies are rewritten. Psalm 23 is more than a verse we recite in times of trouble. It is a divine strategy, a blueprint for breakthrough, a secret message from God Himself. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Right here, the message is clear: lack is not your portion. Fear is not your identity. When God is your shepherd, you walk with assurance. He doesn't just guide your steps, He owns the path. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Sometimes God doesn't want you to fight. He wants you to rest. He wants you to stop trying to force open doors and trust the one who holds the master key. Your green pasture is not a place, it's a posture of peace in His presence. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Listen carefully. Breakthrough often passes through valleys. The shadow is intimidating, but it has no power. God never said, "If you walk through the valley," He said, "though." Because the valley is temporary, your destiny is not in the valley, it's on the other side. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Oh, this is where it gets good. God is not waiting for your enemies to disappear. He's setting the table while they watch. He's not hiding your breakthrough. He's displaying it publicly so that everyone who doubted you will see the glory of God on your life. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. When God is your shepherd, you don't chase blessings. Blessings chase you. Goodness and mercy are your spiritual bodyguards. Wherever you go, they follow. When you fall, they lift you. When you rise, they celebrate you. When we read the words, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," it's easy to let them roll off the tongue without truly grasping their depth. But these words are not just poetic, they are powerful. They reveal a hidden assurance, a promise that God is not distant or indifferent. He is a shepherd, and that changes everything. A shepherd is not a casual observer. A shepherd is present, attentive, and fully responsible for the well-being of the sheep. When David wrote these words, he wasn't speaking as a king, looking down on his people. He was speaking as a former shepherd who knew exactly what it meant to watch over something precious. He understood that sheep don't navigate their lives, they are guided. Sheep don't provide for themselves, they are provided for. They don't protect themselves, they are protected. This is the divine assurance Psalm 23 begins with. God positions Himself not as a distant ruler, but as a personal shepherd. A shepherd leads from the front, not from behind. He knows the terrain, the dangers, and the safe places. He walks ahead of the flock, facing every obstacle first. If there's a thorny path, He clears it. If there's a predator lurking, He confronts it. If there's confusion in the direction, He restores order. When God declares that He is your shepherd, He is saying, "I take responsibility for your journey." He is not waiting for you to figure everything out. He's already mapped the path. This is why David could say with boldness, "I shall not want." It wasn't because David had everything at that moment, but because he trusted the one leading him. Lack loses its power when you trust the shepherd's provision. Think about how a shepherd interacts with his sheep. He knows each one by name. He can distinguish their cries, their habits, and their fears. Some sheep wander more than others. Some are timid. Some are stubborn. Yet the shepherd knows how to deal with each one individually. That's how God deals with you. He doesn't lead you with a generic plan. He knows your weaknesses, your strengths, your tendencies, and your calling. His guidance is personal. Divine assurance is not about knowing every step. It's about knowing who is leading the way. When you walk with the shepherd, uncertainty doesn't disappear, but fear does. Many times in life, we act like sheep without a shepherd. We try to chart our own course, carry our own burdens, and protect ourselves from every threat. We become anxious when we can't see the outcome, and we panic when resources seem scarce. But the message hidden in this first line is simple yet transformative. You don't have to live in survival mode when God is your shepherd. You can rest knowing that your needs are already accounted for. I shall not want is not arrogance, it's trust. It's the confidence that the one leading you is never late, never unprepared, and never caught off guard. In ancient times, shepherds would lead their sheep through harsh wilderness to reach better pastures. The sheep didn't always understand why they were moving, why they were passing through dry land, or why they had to keep walking. But they trusted the shepherd's voice. The breakthrough for the sheep wasn't in understanding every step. It was in staying close to the one who did. That's what God wants from you. He doesn't expect you to have every answer, only to stay close enough to hear his direction. When you stay near the shepherd, even in moments of confusion, his presence becomes your map. Another powerful layer in this line is the word, my. David didn't say, "The Lord is a shepherd." He said, "The Lord is my shepherd." This is personal ownership, personal relationship. It's one thing to know that God is powerful. It's another to know He is personally invested in your life. Your breakthrough begins when you stop seeing God as a distant figure and start seeing Him as your daily guide. That shift changes how you walk through uncertainty. It changes how you respond to lack. It changes how you view obstacles. When you recognize God as your shepherd, fear loses its grip because you realize you're not navigating life alone. You don't have to manufacture your own blessings. You don't have to carry the full weight of the journey. Divine assurance gives you the freedom to walk by faith, not by sight. It doesn't mean challenges won't come. It means when they do, you have someone leading you through them. Just like a shepherd doesn't abandon the sheep when wolves approach, God doesn't retreat when life gets hard. In fact, that's when His role becomes even more evident. I shall not want is not a passive statement. It's a declaration of faith. It's choosing to believe that everything you need for your assignment, your growth, and your breakthrough is already prepared. The shepherd doesn't lead the sheep to barren ground. He leads them to green pastures. It might take time to reach those pastures, but the destination is sure. God's assurance isn't always about immediate provision. It's about guaranteed guidance. You may not see the pasture right now, but the shepherd does. You may not understand why the journey feels long, but He's already cleared the way. This divine assurance should quiet the storms of doubt that rise inside us. It's a reminder that your shepherd sees what you cannot. He provides what you cannot create. He protects from what you cannot fight alone. And He leads where you would never find on your own. The secret to walking in breakthrough is to walk with trust, not panic. To follow the shepherd's voice, even when the path doesn't make sense. Because when God is your shepherd, lack is temporary, fear is powerless, and breakthrough is inevitable. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. These words are more than poetic imagery. They carry a spiritual strategy that many overlook. In life, we often associate breakthrough with action, hustle, and relentless effort. But here, God reveals a secret. Before the breakthrough comes rest. He doesn't say, "He allows me to lie down," but makes me. This is significant. Sometimes God has to interrupt our constant striving, our endless planning, and our anxious movement to bring us to a place of stillness. He knows that if we don't learn to rest in Him, we will wear ourselves out trying to fix what only He can handle. Green pastures represent abundance, provision, and peace. They are places where the sheep can feed without fear, where their needs are met without striving. In the same way, God brings us to moments where He wants to restore us, not through more doing, but through surrender. When we're exhausted mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, He doesn't give us more battles to fight. He gives us a place to lie down. The breakthrough often doesn't happen when you are working harder, but when you finally let go and allow Him to take control. Many people miss divine opportunities because they think rest is weakness. But in God's kingdom, rest is power. Rest is where clarity comes. Rest is where strength is renewed. Still waters symbolize peace, stability, and divine refreshment. Sheep are naturally afraid of rushing waters. They can't drink from turbulent streams because they'll panic and be swept away. So the shepherd leads them to calm, quiet waters where they can drink without fear. This is what God does for you. He doesn't just want to give you provision. He wants to give you peace while receiving it. He doesn't just want to bless you with opportunities. He wants to make sure you're not too anxious to enjoy them. Too often, we pray for breakthroughs while our hearts are racing, our minds are clouded, and our spirits are restless. God knows that blessings placed in restless hands can quickly turn into burdens. So He leads us to still waters first, to settle our spirits before He reveals the next step. Notice that the verse says, He leads. The sheep don't find the still waters on their own. The shepherd takes them there. This is a reminder that peace is not something you manufacture. It's something you're led into. You can't force stillness through self-effort. You can't buy peace or create it by controlling circumstances. True rest is found in trusting the shepherd's leadership. He knows where the green pastures are. He knows where the quiet streams flow. Your job is not to map the route, but to follow His leading. This part of Psalm 23 also reveals something about God's timing. Sheep don't lie down when they're hungry, afraid, or uneasy. They only rest when they feel safe and satisfied. God waits for the right moment to bring you into that place of rest. Sometimes you're fighting battles that He never intended you to fight, because you haven't followed Him into rest. You've tried to build your own green pastures, and all it's brought is exhaustion. But when He makes you lie down, it's because He's already prepared the place. Your part is to yield. Think about how breakthroughs often happen. It's not always in the middle of noise and activity. Sometimes the greatest moments of divine intervention come when you step back, pray, and allow God to work. It's in that quiet space where He speaks with clarity. It's in those still moments where you finally hear the instructions that were drowned out by busyness. This is why He makes you lie down, because if He didn't, you might keep moving in circles, mistaking activity for progress. Many people struggle with this part of God's process because it requires trust. It's easier to keep working than to wait. It's easier to stay busy than to be still. Being still exposes your thoughts, your fears, and your doubts. But God uses stillness to address what movement cannot. He uses rest to reset your perspective, to remind you that the outcome is not in your hands, but in His. The green pastures and still waters are not a detour, they're preparation. Before God brings you into the fullness of your breakthrough, He wants your soul to be anchored in peace, not tossed by anxiety. In practical terms, this means that breakthrough is not just about external change, but internal transformation. You can step into a new season externally, but still carry the same unrest internally. That's why God leads you to rest first. He wants to deal with your heart before He elevates your circumstances. He wants to teach you how to depend on Him completely, not partially. The rest He provides is not laziness or passivity, it's intentional trust. It's choosing to let Him guide while you stay close. This verse also reveals God's tenderness. He doesn't drive the sheep harshly, He leads them gently. He doesn't throw them into the waters. He guides them beside still streams. This reflects His character toward you. He's not trying to exhaust you. He's trying to refresh you. He knows when you need to keep moving and when you need to lie down. The challenge is whether you're willing to listen when He says, "Rest here for a while." If you think about it, some of the greatest biblical victories came after moments of divine stillness. Before battles were won, there was often a command to wait, to stand still, to watch the salvation of the Lord. Rest is not inactivity, it's spiritual positioning. It's standing still so God can fight for you. It's lying down in the green pastures of His promises, letting His peace restore what constant striving drained. This second keynote is a reminder that God's path to breakthrough doesn't always look like what we expect. We think we need to move faster. He says, "Lie down." We think we need to figure it all out. He says, "Follow my lead to still waters." He knows that you can't run effectively if you're empty inside. He knows that the strength to walk through valleys later comes from the rest you receive now. This is why the shepherd's first move is not to rush you, but to refresh you. He makes you lie down because He loves you too much to let exhaustion sabotage your breakthrough. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. These words are often quoted in moments of difficulty, but their depth is far greater than a phrase of comfort. This is the point in Psalm 23 where the scene shifts from peaceful pastures and still waters to a valley, a place that represents darkness, uncertainty, and danger. The key word here is through. The valley is not a permanent dwelling place, it's a passage. God never promised that you wouldn't face valleys. He promised that you wouldn't walk through them alone. Valleys are not punishments. They are pathways to purpose. Every major breakthrough is often preceded by a valley season, a time when you can't see the full picture, but must keep walking in trust. The valley of the shadow of death is symbolic of moments when fear tries to take hold. Shadows can distort reality. They can make small things look bigger than they are. A shadow of a wolf can look as terrifying as the wolf itself, even if the danger isn't real. Similarly, in life, shadows come in the form of fear, doubt, loss, betrayal, and unexpected challenges. They whisper that the journey is over, that God has abandoned you, that the promise was an illusion. But the verse says, shadow, not substance. A shadow cannot exist without light. The presence of a shadow in the valley means light is still present somewhere. If you focus only on the shadow, fear grows. But if you look toward the light, confidence returns. Walking through a valley requires a different kind of faith than lying in green pastures. It's easy to trust when everything is clear and peaceful. But when the path is dark, trust becomes your only navigation system. Notice that David doesn't say he runs through the valley, he walks. This shows calm assurance. There's no panic, no rushing, no desperate scrambling to escape. He walks because he knows who is walking with him. Fear loses its grip when you realize you're not in the valley alone. God's presence turns the valley from a place of terror into a place of transformation. The valley is also where dependence deepens. In the green pastures, the sheep may feel safe enough to wander a bit. By the still waters, they can relax. But in the valley, they draw close to the shepherd. They listen carefully for his voice. They follow his every move because danger could be anywhere. Likewise, in our valley seasons, we learn to depend on God more intimately. When resources dry up, when plans fall apart, when doors close unexpectedly, we learn that his presence is not a luxury, it's our lifeline. It's in the valley where faith matures. It's in the valley where you discover the difference between knowing about God and truly knowing him. The rod and the staff mentioned in this verse are not decorative symbols. The rod represents authority and protection. Shepherds used it to defend the sheep from predators. The staff represents guidance and support. It was used to gently pull a wandering sheep back onto the path, or to steady it when the ground was unstable. These two tools reveal how God operates in the valley. His rod defends you against attacks you see and those you don't. His staff guides you when you can't see clearly. He's not distant, watching from afar. He's active, involved, and present in every step. This is why David says, "They comfort me." The comfort doesn't come from the absence of the valley, but from the assurance that God's protection and guidance are constant. Valleys have a way of revealing what's truly inside us. When everything is bright, it's easy to declare trust. But in darkness, words are tested. The valley exposes fears we didn't know we had, doubts we didn't confront, and weaknesses we tried to ignore. Yet this exposure is not meant to break us, it's meant to build us. God uses the valley to refine character, strengthen faith, and strip away illusions of self-sufficiency. Breakthrough often requires going through a season that teaches you to rely on God's strength rather than your own. The valley is not a setback, it's preparation. It's also important to notice that David says, "I will fear no evil." This is a choice, not just a feeling. Fear will always try to rise in the valley, but faith is a decision to trust even when fear screams louder. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear dictate your steps. David's confidence comes from one source: "For you are with me." The presence of God is the ultimate antidote to fear. When you know who is beside you, the darkness around you loses its power. Valleys often bring silence, and silence can feel unsettling. You may not always hear God speaking loudly in these seasons, but that doesn't mean He's absent. Shepherds often speak less in dangerous terrain, so that the sheep learn to stay close and follow their movement, not just their voice. Likewise, God sometimes teaches you in the valley through His presence, rather than through loud instructions. His nearness becomes your direction. Another powerful truth is that the valley is part of the journey to higher ground. In the geography of the Middle East, valleys were often the safest routes to get from one pasture to another. They looked intimidating, but they were necessary pathways. If the sheep avoided the valley out of fear, they would never reach the new pastures prepared for them. Similarly, if you run from every valley season, you'll miss the breakthroughs waiting on the other side. The valley is not an obstacle to your destiny, it's a bridge. This verse also shifts the language from talking about God to talking to God. Earlier in the psalm, David says, "He leads me, He makes me." But here he says, "You are with me." This shift shows intimacy. Valleys push you into closer conversation with God. In good times, you might speak about Him. In hard times, you speak directly to Him. This is one of the hidden blessings of the valley. It draws you closer to the shepherd in ways that comfort never could. Walking through the valley of the shadow of death doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you choose a higher reality, the reality of God's presence. The shadow is real, but so is the light. The danger is real, but so is His defense. The uncertainty is real, but so is His guidance. The valley may feel endless, but it's temporary. Every step you take in faith is a step closer to your breakthrough. The shadow cannot stop what God has already planned. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. This verse is one of the most powerful declarations of divine favor and victory. It reveals that God's breakthrough for your life doesn't wait for perfect conditions. He doesn't remove every enemy, silence every critic, or eliminate every challenge before He blesses you. Instead, He blesses you right in the middle of opposition. He sets the table, not in private, but in the presence of those who thought you wouldn't make it. This is not just provision, this is a public demonstration of God's faithfulness. When God prepares a table, it's not a rushed meal or a quick snack. A table represents abundance, intimacy, and honor. In ancient times, to prepare a table for someone was to honor them as a guest of great value. It wasn't just about food, it was about position. By preparing a table for you in front of your enemies, God is declaring that your identity is not defined by their opinions or their attacks. He is saying, I choose you, I honor you, I bless you in front of those who thought you were finished. This is the kind of breakthrough that shifts how others see you, but more importantly, how you see yourself. The presence of enemies in this verse is intentional. God could have chosen to remove them before setting the table, but He doesn't. Why? Because the table is meant to be a testimony. If He blessed you in isolation, no one would see it. If He waited until your critics disappeared, they'd never witness His power in your life. But when He sets the table in their presence, it becomes undeniable that it's His hand at work. Your enemies may not applaud, but they will have to watch. The same people who questioned you will see the favor of God unfold before their eyes. There's also a deeper personal message in this imagery. Sometimes the enemies are not people, they are fears, insecurities, doubts, or circumstances that have tried to hold you back. God prepares the table not after you conquer every inner battle, but while those voices still linger around. He doesn't wait for you to be flawless. He blesses you as a way to remind you that His power is greater than your weaknesses. The table is a place of communion, not perfection. The next phrase, "You anoint my head with oil," carries immense significance. In ancient shepherding, oil was used on a sheep's head to protect it from insects and to heal wounds. Flies and parasites would attack a sheep's head, sometimes causing infections or even driving the sheep to panic. By applying oil, the shepherd created a barrier of protection and brought healing. Spiritually, anointing represents God's empowerment, protection, and favor. When God anoints your head with oil, He's not just blessing you outwardly. He's covering your mind, your thoughts, and your identity. He's protecting you from the mental and spiritual attacks that often accompany elevation. A breakthrough is not just about outward success, it's about inward stability. Oil also symbolizes consecration, being set apart for a divine purpose. When kings were anointed in the Old Testament, it signified God's choice and empowerment. In this verse, the anointing comes in the presence of enemies, showing that God's calling on your life doesn't need anyone's approval to be valid. He anoints you even while others doubt you. He sets you apart even when the environment is hostile. This is the secret to walking in breakthrough, realizing that your elevation is not man-made, it's God-ordained. Then comes the phrase, "My cup runs over." This isn't just a full cup, it's overflowing. God is not a God of barely enough. He is the God of more than enough. The overflowing cup represents abundance, joy, provision, and grace spilling beyond your capacity. It's the image of blessings that can't be contained, of favor that affects not just you, but those around you. When God brings you into a breakthrough season, it's not a quiet, subtle shift. It's an overflow that touches every area of your life: relationships, opportunities, influence, and spiritual depth. The overflowing cup also reflects a shift in mindset. It moves you from survival thinking to abundance thinking. When your cup is overflowing, you stop living with a scarcity mentality. You stop fearing loss and start expecting increase, not because of your ability, but because of his faithfulness. You realize that the source of your overflow is not your work, your network, or your cleverness. It's the shepherd who prepares the table. Another important aspect of this verse is timing. The table is prepared while enemies are present. The anointing happens in that same space, and the overflow follows. This sequence shows that breakthrough often comes when things still look messy. God doesn't wait for every problem to disappear. He moves in the middle of the battle. Many people delay embracing their breakthrough because they're waiting for perfect circumstances. But the psalm teaches that God's blessings are not delayed by opposition. In fact, opposition often signals that the table is being set. This verse also challenges how we handle breakthrough moments. It's easy to become defensive or distracted by enemies, to focus so much on the negative voices that we miss the table being set before us. The shepherd is saying, sit down, eat, rest. Let me serve you while they watch. This requires trust. It requires the discipline to keep your eyes on the table rather than on the faces around it. If you keep looking at your enemies, you'll miss the meal. But if you focus on the shepherd, you'll enjoy the feast. The table also represents relationship. God doesn't just throw blessings at you from afar. He invites you to sit and dine with him. In biblical culture, sharing a table signified covenant and closeness. This is God's way of saying, even in the midst of opposition, I want fellowship with you. The greatest breakthrough is not just what you receive, but the deeper relationship you experience with him at that table. Finally, this imagery reveals the kind of confidence God wants you to walk in. When he sets a table before your enemies, anoints your head with oil, and causes your cup to overflow, he's showing you that no opposition can stop his plan. You don't need to fight every enemy when the shepherd is hosting the table. Your role is to sit, trust, and receive. The presence of enemies doesn't diminish the blessing, it magnifies it. It becomes evidence of his hand on your life. God turns what was meant to intimidate you into the backdrop for your victory. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This final line of Psalm 23 is not merely a conclusion, it is a declaration of unshakable victory. It speaks of a life so anchored in God's faithfulness that goodness and mercy are no longer things you chase, they chase you. David begins with the word surely, a word of absolute confidence. It's not maybe, not I hope, but surely. This is the language of someone who has walked with the shepherd long enough to know that his promises are reliable. This is the voice of someone who has experienced green pastures, walked through dark valleys, feasted in the presence of enemies, and come out with an overflowing cup. Surely is the sound of a soul that has learned to trust beyond circumstances. Goodness represents the tangible blessings, favor, and grace of God manifested in daily life. It's the kindness of God expressed through provision, opportunities, protection, and unexpected blessings. Mercy represents his compassion, forgiveness, and covering over our shortcomings. Together, they form a complete shield around the believer. Goodness blesses you with what you don't deserve in abundance, and mercy withholds from you what you do deserve because of his grace. David declares that these two forces are not stationary, they are active. They follow him. The Hebrew word for follow in this verse actually means to pursue, to chase after. This isn't a casual trailing behind, it's relentless pursuit. Imagine living a life where God's goodness and mercy are constantly chasing you down. You don't have to manipulate outcomes, force open doors, or live in fear of missing opportunities. When God is your shepherd, you don't run after blessings, they run after you. Goodness and mercy become your lifelong companions, your spiritual bodyguards, ensuring that every step you take is covered by His favor and His forgiveness. Even when you stumble, mercy picks you up. Even when you lack strength, goodness provides what's needed. This is not a seasonal promise, it's for all the days of your life. That means on good days and bad, in seasons of abundance and seasons of struggle, God's goodness and mercy are constant. This truth reshapes how you view the future. Many people live in anxiety about what's ahead. They worry about missed opportunities, failures, or uncertainties. But when you understand this promise, fear loses its grip. The future is not something to dread, it's something to walk into with confidence, knowing that God has already sent goodness and mercy ahead of you. They are not just following, they are securing your path. You can step forward boldly, not because you know every detail, but because you know who's covering every step. There's also a subtle shift in perspective here. Earlier in the psalm, David describes being led. He leads me beside still waters. He leads me in paths of righteousness. But now, at the end, he describes being followed. This shows the complete nature of God's care. He goes before you to lead and behind you to cover. He surrounds you. You are not exposed or unprotected at any point. His leadership guides your future, and His goodness and mercy guard your past and present. Even the mistakes you made yesterday are covered by mercy, and the blessings you'll need tomorrow are secured by goodness. This verse also highlights the permanence of God's relationship with His people. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In ancient times, to dwell in someone's house meant more than just visiting, it meant belonging. David isn't talking about occasional encounters with God. He's talking about a permanent residence in His presence. This is the ultimate breakthrough, not just temporary blessings, but eternal relationship. It's not about chasing moments of spiritual highs. It's about living in ongoing communion with the shepherd. Dwelling in the house of the Lord signifies security, identity, and intimacy. A sheep that dwells in the shepherd's care doesn't worry about where it will find food tomorrow or how it will fight predators. It simply lives in the constant assurance of the shepherd's provision and protection. In the same way, when you dwell in God's presence, you're no longer a spiritual wanderer. You're rooted, anchored, and covered. This transforms how you handle challenges. Instead of reacting in fear, you respond from a place of stability. The promise of goodness and mercy also reveals something important about God's character. His faithfulness is not conditional on your perfection. Goodness and mercy follow you even on days when you falter. They follow you when you're strong and when you're weak. They follow you when you walk confidently and when you stumble through the valley. This doesn't mean that disobedience has no consequences, but it does mean that His love and faithfulness are constant. He doesn't abandon you when you fall. Mercy lifts you back up. He doesn't withdraw blessings when you face setbacks. Goodness still provides. Living with this awareness creates a new level of peace. You stop striving for God's approval because you realize you're already pursued by His goodness and mercy. You stop fearing abandonment because you know His presence is permanent. You stop worrying about the future because you know He's already in it. This mindset allows you to live with gratitude instead of anxiety, confidence instead of fear, worship instead of worry. This verse also emphasizes consistency. All the days of my life means every single day matters to God. There's no day too ordinary for His goodness to show up, no day too messy for His mercy to work. Some people believe God's presence is only strong during spiritual highs or major life events, but David reminds us that His care is daily. The same God who is with you in grand victories is also with you in quiet mornings, routine work, and hidden struggles. His pursuit is constant and unwavering. The phrase, "I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever," also points beyond earthly life. David isn't only talking about his present, he's declaring eternal security. The shepherd who guided him through pastures, valleys, and tables will continue to lead him beyond this life into eternal fellowship. Breakthrough in God's terms is not just about temporary success or relief, it's about eternal belonging. The ultimate victory is knowing that nothing can separate you from His presence, not even death. When you truly believe that goodness and mercy are following you and that your place in God's presence is secure, it changes how you walk through life. You stop living from fear and start living from assurance. You stop chasing validation and start walking in purpose. You stop doubting whether you'll make it and start declaring, "Surely." This final keynote is the culmination of everything the shepherd has done. He has led, protected, provided, blessed, anointed, and now He surrounds you with His goodness and mercy forever. Psalm 23 is not just a beautiful passage, it's a divine roadmap to breakthrough. From the stillness of green pastures to the darkness of the valley, from the table set before enemies to the overflowing cup, every line reveals a part of God's unshakable plan for your life. He leads, He restores, He protects, He anoints, and He surrounds you with goodness and mercy. Your journey is not random, it's guided. Your struggles are not wasted, they're shaping you. Your blessings are not temporary, they're anchored in His presence. When you walk with the shepherd, fear loses its power, lack loses its voice, and breakthrough is not a distant hope, it's a living reality. So stand firm, trust deeply, rest in His timing, and move forward with confidence. The same God who began the journey with you will walk with you every step of the way. Surely goodness and mercy will follow you, and His presence will be your home forever. Teku.